I still remember the way she said it, like it was no big deal. Like she was asking if I wanted to try a new restaurant or rearrange the living room furniture. We should try opening the marriage, she said casually, sipping wine like she hadn't just dropped a live grenade in the middle of dinner. My name is Armin. I'm 42, living in San Jose. I design homes for a living, clean lines, good balance, calm spaces. Maybe that's why what she said felt so off. It didn't belong in our rhythm. Zara, my wife, is 39. She's a consultant for a tech firm, the kind of person who can hop time zones without losing track of a single spreadsheet. Sharp as hell, always moving. We've been married for 7 years. Solid years, or so I thought. At first, I thought I misheard. Come again. She set her glass down. I'm serious. I've been reading about it. Couples try to bring back the spark. It's not about cheating, it's consensual. Healthy, even. I stared at her, trying to figure out if she was joking. She wasn't smiling. I put my fork down. Is that something you've been thinking about for a while? Zara shrugged, too casual. Just an idea. You know, shake things up. You said yourself things have felt off lately. Had I said that? Maybe in passing. Maybe one night after too much whiskey. I didn't remember. I leaned back in my chair. Zara, I'm not really wired that way. I like what we have, just you and me. I don't think adding more people to it makes it stronger. She didn't argue, just nodded like she expected it. I figured you'd say that. I wanted to ask more. Why now? Who brought this up? What exactly did she mean by spark? But something in her tone made me feel like pushing further would come off defensive. So I let it go. We changed the subject to a Netflix show and cleaned up dinner. She didn't bring it up again that night, but I couldn't sleep. I kept going back to her face. How come she'd been? Not nervous, not unsure. It made me wonder if she'd already crossed some line in her mind and just needed me to catch up. The next night, I tried to revisit the conversation gently. About what you said, opening things up. I just want to understand what's missing. We can talk, you know? If you're unhappy. She blinked at me, narrowed her eyes. Don't turn this into a therapy session. I'm not, I said, careful. I'm just trying to meet you halfway. If you're thinking about this, I'd rather talk it through than pretend it didn't happen. Her voice went flat. This is what I mean. You always do this. Try to twist my words, like I'm broken and you're the fixer. That hit me harder than I expected. I opened my mouth, then closed it. After that, she got up and walked into the bedroom, leaving me alone with a cold plate and 100 thoughts. Nothing had happened yet. No betrayal. No confession. Just a question and a refusal. But already, something between us felt different. Like a pane of glass had dropped between us, thin but impossible to ignore. Things got quieter after that night. Not in the peaceful, comfortable kind of way, but like we were both walking on ice, afraid of where it might crack. Zara started coming home later. At first, it was just an extra hour or two. Client call ran long. Last-minute deadline. I didn't push. She's always been driven first in, last out. But the timing felt too convenient. Then the late nights became routine. Don't wait up, she texted one evening. We're pitching a new client from Singapore. Time zones are a nightmare. That was the 4th time that week. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I made dinner anyway, her favorite, lamb biryani, the kind that takes hours to cook properly. Set the table, lit a candle, even folded the napkins like she liked. She came home at 9:45. Oh, you cooked, she said, looking at the food like it was an obstacle. I figured you'd be hungry. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's sweet. Then she walked into the bedroom without touching a bite. I sat down alone and picked at my plate. The silence around me felt heavier than usual. Even the clink of my fork sounded accusatory. The next few weeks were a blur of empty chairs and cold dinners. Zara kept blaming promotion season, telling me about some high-stakes client they were trying to land. A European firm, she said, could lead to travel. I'm this close, she said one morning, tapping her thumb and index finger together. If I land this, it changes everything. I nodded. That's great. But her tone was different lately, hollow, rehearsed. Like she was repeating a story she didn't quite believe anymore. And something else had shifted too. She was colder. Sharper. Every little thing I said turned into a jab. Did you remember to call the plumber? I asked one morning. Her eyes rolled hard enough to make me flinch. Jesus, Armin. You act like I'm completely incompetent. I was just asking. Well, don't. The next time she snapped over nothing, I just stood there and stared at her. She turned away, muttering, You're so damn passive-aggressive. I didn't recognize the person in front of me anymore. That weekend, I sat in the living room scrolling through old photos, her birthday last year, our trip to Seattle, even just Sunday mornings making pancakes in sweats. She used to laugh so easily. Now she barely looked me in the eye. One Tuesday night, I couldn't take the ambiguity anymore. She told me she'd be working late again, staying at the office to prep for tomorrow's presentation. So I drove there. I didn't plan it. I just got in the car and started driving like I needed to see something for myself. It was nearly 10 when I pulled up outside her building. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few lights on in the upper floors. I walked into the lobby and approached the front desk. "I'm here to see Zara Imran," I said, trying to sound casual. She told me to meet her. The receptionist gave me a polite but puzzled smile. "Sorry, sir. She left hours ago. Around 6:30, I think." My stomach turned. "Are you sure?" She double-checked the log. "Yes. I remember because she was with two people, looked like coworkers. They were laughing about something. Said they were heading out." I nodded slowly. "Thanks." I walked back to my car and sat behind the wheel, staring at the empty passenger seat. Something deeper than doubt settled over me, heavier, darker. It wasn't just work. Something else was going on, and I couldn't unsee it now. The next morning, I waited until Zara finished her coffee before bringing it up. "So, last night," I said, keeping my tone light, "I stopped by your office." Her expression didn't change. She sipped from her mug and gave me a blank look. "Why? You said you were working late. I thought I'd surprise you. Bring you some food." She blinked. "Just once. I told you I had a late call, not that I'd be there all night. You also said you were prepping a presentation." "I was," she said, cool as ever. "Just not in the office. The team met off-site. It was last minute. A client dinner at a hotel bar downtown." She said it like it was nothing. I nodded slowly, as if that explained everything. But I didn't believe her. Not entirely. I wanted to. God, I wanted to just move on and forget about the whole thing. But that knot in my stomach had settled in like a permanent tenant. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there next to her, staring at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone, her screen lighting up her face. She smiled faintly at something, typed, then turned it face down on the nightstand and rolled away from me. At some point, she drifted off. Her breathing evened out. I didn't plan to snoop. But the phone was right there, screen side down, like it was hiding something. I stared at it for what felt like an hour before I finally picked it up and stepped into the bathroom, shutting the door behind me. I told myself I'd just check her recent messages. Maybe clear my head. Maybe confirm that I was just being paranoid. It took less than 30 seconds to prove I wasn't. First, a thread with someone saved as J Design. The first message I saw was a picture. Him shirtless. Young, late 20s, maybe. The kind of guy who never had to think twice about protein shakes or gym lighting. Her reply? A fire emoji. Then, "Damn, you're trying to kill me tonight." My heart slammed against my ribs. I kept scrolling. Another thread, this one with Nat HR. I opened it and almost dropped the phone. They weren't just talking. They were sharing. Photos, videos, plans. Her last message was from 2 nights ago. "I want to taste you in that elevator again. Don't make me wait till Friday." I felt sick. The phone slipped a little in my grip, but I caught it before it hit the floor. I shut it off and leaned over the sink, trying to breathe through it. I didn't even know who to be angry at, her? The strangers? Myself? I put the phone back exactly where I found it and walked into the living room. Then I just sat on the couch with my head in my hands. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I booked a room at the Conrad downtown. Same hotel where I knew she sometimes met clients. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think, couldn't stay in that bed next to her any longer. At 9:45 the next morning, I got a notification. "Zara, room 917, 8 p.m., face-blowing kiss." I didn't have to guess what that was. I checked out of my room and rebooked a suite directly across the hall from 917. I even asked for a late check-in so I could wait without being disturbed. That night, I sat in the armchair by the window with a bottle of whiskey and the kind of anger that doesn't scream, it simmers. Quiet, heavy, and razor-sharp. She showed up at 8:17, wearing heels I hadn't seen before, laughing as she walked down the hall with a guy in a denim jacket and smug body language. He didn't look old enough to rent the room himself. They stopped in front of 917. She reached into her purse. That's when I stood up, opened my door, and walked into the hall. I didn't yell. I didn't cause a scene. I just tapped her shoulder gently and said, "Good luck tonight." Her face froze mid-smile. She turned, and for the first time in months, she looked truly speechless. Then I walked back into my room and shut the door. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I woke up the next morning on Faison's couch, my head pounding from the whiskey, my chest still raw from the night before. The ache wasn't just emotional, it was physical. Like something had been torn out and left behind in that hotel hallway. Faison had been my best friend since college. The kind of guy who always showed up, no matter how messy things got. I hadn't said much when I showed up at his apartment past midnight. Just handed him a six-pack, collapsed on the couch, and mumbled, "She's been cheating." Now it was morning. He handed me coffee without asking questions. Strong, no sugar, just how I liked it. "She saw you?" he asked quietly, sitting beside me. I nodded, staring at the untouched mug. I tapped her shoulder, told her good luck. He let out a low whistle. Damn. Neither of us said anything for a while. The TV played something forgettable in the background, some morning news segment, cheerful and oblivious. I couldn't stop seeing her face. That flicker of panic when she realized it was me. Like a kid caught red-handed, not sorry, just shocked to be found out. "Armin," Faison said, setting down his cup, "you need to protect yourself now. Emotionally, financially, everything." I didn't answer. "She's not coming back from this. Even if she begs. You know that, right?" I nodded, slow and heavy. I keep thinking maybe I did something wrong. That if I'd been more." "Nope." He cut me off. "Don't do that. Don't carry her mess. She made the choices. All you did was trust her." That broke something in me. I looked away, swallowed hard. My throat burned. He leaned forward. "You need a lawyer." That pulled me back. "A lawyer? You're married, bro. You've got shared accounts, a house, probably stuff she's already moved around without telling you. You need to get ahead of it." I rubbed my face with both hands. This doesn't even feel real. It is. And it's about to get uglier. Later that day, I logged into our bank app. My stomach sank. She had already transferred nearly $5,000 from our joint savings into her personal account 2 days earlier. Labeled it business expenses. I called our bank and froze the accounts. Then I called an attorney Faison recommended, a woman named Nadira who didn't sugarcoat anything. "She's going to spin this however she can," Nadira said. "We'll file first. That gives us an advantage." "Okay," I said, not trusting myself to say more. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at Faison's again, and every time my phone buzzed, I ignored it. Zara had texted once, just a single line. "Can we talk?" Talk? Now she wanted to talk? The worst part was how numb I felt. No more yelling. No more bargaining. Just this cold distance between who we were and what we'd become. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She had made her choice. And now, I was making mine. By the end of the week, everything started unraveling. I had moved out. Our accounts were frozen. My lawyer had filed the paperwork. And Zara, well, she went into damage control mode. The first text came Friday morning. "I messed up. I know that. But please, don't throw it all away." Then another. "We can work through this." It didn't mean anything. I just needed to feel something again. Each message tried a different tone, regret, nostalgia, even guilt. But they all shared one thing in common. None of them included an actual apology. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I was afraid that if I opened the door even a crack, she'd find her way back in. That night, she called. I watched the screen light up until it went dark. An hour later, she left a voicemail. Her voice was trembling, like she'd finally cracked. "You're really going to just walk away? After everything we built?" "It was just exploring, Armin. You act like I murdered someone. I needed space, and you gave me walls. You made me feel invisible. I listened to the whole thing without feeling anything. Not anger. Not sadness. Just exhaustion." A few days later, Faison called me into the kitchen while we were sorting through some boxes I'd brought over. "Check this out," he said, holding up his phone. "You're gonna love this." He handed it to me. Zara had texted him. "Hey Faison, can we talk?" Armin isn't being reasonable. He's rewriting history and acting like he's perfect. He ignored me for months before all this. I was drowning, and he didn't even notice. I stared at the screen. She was trying to triangulate. Paint me as the villain. Make it look like I drove her into someone else's arms. She really said, drowning? I muttered. More like diving headfirst. Faison took his phone back. I didn't respond. "I won't." "Thanks, man." He nodded. "She's scared. She knows you're serious this time." And I was. more than I'd ever been about anything. Nadira kept me focused. She drew up the divorce filing, made calls to protect my assets, and scheduled everything so efficiently it felt like a business negotiation. Zara hadn't signed yet, but the clock was ticking. Still, even with everything moving forward, something inside me still hesitated. Not because I wanted her back, those days were done, but because I couldn't make sense of how easily she turned cold. How quickly she went from the woman who used to fall asleep on my chest to someone who blamed me for her betrayal. And worst of all, I couldn't stop thinking about how she asked to open the marriage only after she had already cheated. It wasn't about honesty. It never had been. That proposal was just a way to clean the blood off the knife she'd already used. I wasn't perfect, but I was faithful. And now, I had to be faithful to myself. No more maybes. No more chances. Just the long, steady walk toward freedom. About 2 weeks after I filed the divorce paperwork, I got a call from Nadira. She quit her job, she said bluntly. You should know. I sat in my car, parked outside the pharmacy, staring through the windshield like the world had just gone blurry. Wait, what? Nadira sighed. Zara. She resigned this morning. Why? Internal investigation, she said. Not official yet, but word is someone in HR got forwarded explicit messages she sent to a junior associate on the company laptop. I didn't say anything. She's going to have trouble finding another role at her level, Nadira added. Her name's getting flagged. I sat there in silence for a while after we hung up, the engine still running. For a second, just a second, I felt sorry for her. Then I remembered how she looked walking into that hotel room, laughing with someone else while I waited across the hall with a bottle of whiskey and a heart in pieces. A couple of days later, her sister called me. I hadn't spoken to Lena in months. She'd always been the more grounded one in their family, sweet, quiet, private. She didn't dance around things the way Zara did. Hey, Armin, she said gently. This is awkward, but I wanted to talk to you. I knew where this was going before she even got there. She's not doing well, Lena said. I think she's depressed. She barely leaves the apartment. I went over yesterday and honestly, I barely recognized her. Lena. I know, she cut in, voice soft. I know what she did. I'm not excusing it. But she's not herself. She's in pain. I looked out the window at a mom pulling her toddler across the parking lot. The kid dropped a juice box, and she didn't even notice. She had every chance, I said finally. I told her that, Lena whispered. I told her she'd ruin everything if she didn't stop. She didn't ruin it, I said. She buried it. On purpose. She lit the match and threw it at her own life. I was just standing too close when it caught fire. Lena went quiet for a moment. She asked me to call you, she said eventually. She still thinks you might come back if I won't, I said. Not angry. Not cold. Just done. She needs help, I added. Not a reconciliation. Another long pause. Okay, Lena said quietly. I'll tell her. I hung up and sat there for a while. It was strange, really, how I could feel compassion for someone and still not want them anywhere near me again. I didn't hate Zara. I didn't wish her pain. But her suffering wasn't my responsibility. She crossed the line. She looked back. She found no one waiting. And that, I think, was what finally broke her. But me? I wasn't broken anymore. I was just done patching up things I didn't break. I started therapy 3 weeks after I left the house. Faison said I didn't need it, that I was handling things better than most would. But I knew the truth. I was functioning, not healing. The therapist was a soft-spoken man named Harish, with kind eyes and a quiet office that smelled faintly of coffee and sandalwood. At first, I told him what happened like it was someone else's story. Calm, clinical, detached. He didn't say much the first 2 sessions. On the third one, he asked, "Do you feel abandoned?" I stared at him for a moment. "No," I said. "I feel erased." He nodded. That was the turning point. Week by week, I started unloading. The silent dinners. The fake smiles. The hotel hallway. My voice broke once when I mentioned the biryani I made for her, the night she left without eating. That was the worst part, for some reason. Not the sex. Not the lies. The way she looked at my effort like it was a mess on the floor. But slowly, things started to shift. I stopped drinking every night. Cut back on the whiskey. Picked up my camera again. Started volunteering with a local housing nonprofit on Saturdays, just taking photos for their community newsletters. It didn't pay, but it made me feel useful in a way I hadn't in months. Faison and I moved into a new apartment in Willow Glen, smaller, but brighter. Clean lines. Simple colors. No ghosts in the walls. One Sunday morning, I stood on our little balcony with a cup of chai and realized I hadn't thought about her all day. That was progress. Zara still hadn't signed the divorce papers. Nadira said she was delaying, citing emotional distress. That it might be a tactic, buying time, hoping I'd cool down. But I didn't feel cold. I felt clear. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was free. She tried once more, sent me a long email about therapy, about how she was working through trauma, about how our marriage deserved another chance. I read the whole thing, then archived it without replying. I didn't need to understand her decisions anymore. That was the final shift. The release. When you love someone for that long, it takes time to admit they were never who you believed them to be. And once you stop needing to make sense of it, everything starts to make sense. She wasn't the woman I married. Maybe she never had been. I wasn't perfect either. I'd made mistakes. I'd withdrawn, gotten quiet when I should have spoken up. But I never lied, never betrayed, never humiliated. And that counted for something. The night before our final court date, I drove past our old house. Just sat across the street in my car, watching the windows. Lights were on, but I didn't see her. I thought I might cry, or rage, or feel something huge. But I didn't. I just rolled down the window, took a deep breath of the cool evening air, and whispered to myself, "You're not going back." Then I drove off into a life I hadn't planned for. A life that didn't include her. And that, finally, was enough. The papers came back signed on a Tuesday. No warning, no message, just a notification from Nadira's office. Subject: divorce finalized. I stared at the screen for a long time. It felt like closing a book I'd been reading for years, only to realize I'd been stuck in the wrong chapter for half of it. That night, I poured myself a single drink. No buzz, no numbing. Just quiet. Just peace. And then, the next morning, she texted, "Would you meet me for dinner?" One night. Just to say goodbye properly. No strings. No begging. I promise. I didn't answer right away. I sent the message to Faison, half expecting him to reply with "hell no." Instead, he called me. "Do you want to go?" "I don't know." "Then go," he said. Sometimes closure isn't about what you get from them. It's about what you finally say out loud. So I agreed. We met at a little restaurant in downtown Los Gatos. Not one of our old places, somewhere neutral. She wore a simple navy dress, no makeup, hair tied back. She looked like herself, but smaller. Dimmed. I had barely sat down before she spoke. "Thank you for coming." I nodded, unsure what to say. We ordered, shared some bread. And then came the moment, the unspoken reason we were there. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said, folding her napkin slowly. "But I need to say this. I loved you. I really did." "I know," I said. "And I know I destroyed it," she added, voice tight. I didn't think you'd leave." That surprised me. "Then why ask to open the marriage?" She looked away. "Because I thought if I gave it a name, I could pretend it wasn't betrayal. I was already doing it. I just wanted a clean conscience." That hurt more than I expected. "But there's no such thing," she said. "Clean betrayal." We sat in silence for a bit. "Why this dinner?" I asked. She hesitated. "Because I didn't want it to end with cold signatures and silence. I wanted to remember us before it all got ruined." She reached into her bag and slid something across the table, a small photo of us from a trip to Point Reyes 2 years ago. We were laughing, wind in our hair, a blur of real joy. "I'll always love that version of us," she said, "even if I didn't protect it." I stared at the photo, then slid it back. "I don't need to hold on to the best parts anymore," I said gently. "I lived them. That's enough." She nodded, lips pressed tight. Then, without warning, she reached for my hand. "Thank you for being good to me," she said, tears threatening. "Even when I didn't deserve it." I didn't pull away, but I didn't say anything either. Later, in the parking lot, we hugged. Brief. Honest. Then she looked up at me with tired eyes and whispered, "Goodbye, Armin." "Goodbye, Zara." I watched her drive away, taillights fading. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel loss. I felt light. Because I knew, without doubt, I had given everything I could. And that was the end of our story.